Just before we start the video, whether you've heard of this story or maybe you haven't yet, I didn't mention it in the main part, but it's just when doing research for this, you see a lot of Western fans kind of backtracking and trying to point fingers and the blame to Korean fans and everything, which has absolutely no excuse, especially once it starts turning into more like racial abuse and stereotyping. So I just wanted to point that out.
마주도 시작한다.
K-pop fandoms have always had their fair share of drama, but the recent situation surrounding Enhypen fan Mina has gone way beyond just casual fan wars. Mina was a 26-year-old Japanese Enhypen fan and influencer known very much in the fandom. Her bias was Nikki, and she would often go to Enhypen fan meets, concerts, and other events that were hosted. She was known in the fandom and unfortunately also disliked by a few, mainly due to jealousy. It was the simple fact that members started to recognize her that set a lot of people off, which you can imagine it would do so with how parasocial the industry is. But as of this month, she became the center of controversy after an interaction at one of the group's concerts. Here, she basically handed one of the members, Sunu, a bucket of flowers, requesting that he give them to Nikki, again her bias. Following the concert, Nikki later spoke during a live stream about how he actually wants his fans to enjoy the concert rather than being focused on interacting with their idol. And this is a very general statement that you'll see a lot in the industry because it's all based on concert etiquette. And during this live stream, there were no names mentioned whatsoever.
나는 콘서트라는 게 모두가 다 같이 행복하고 다 좋은 시간 보내라고 있는 거잖아요. 그래서 저는 다 보고 싶어요. 여기 그 공연장에 있는 사람들 다 잘 챙겨주고 싶고 구석에 있는 엔진들은 저희를 잘 안 볼 수도 있으니까 그런 데까지 잘 챙겨주고 싶고 모든 엔진을 다 챙겨주고 싶은데 가끔이 아니죠. 뭐 어딜 가나 자기를 알아봐달라고 하는 사람이 가끔 있더라고요. 몇 명. 그리고 또 안 뛰어. 막 놀지를 않아. 뭔가 즐기고 있는 것 같지가 않아. 근데 그게 보면은 약간 조금 흥이 떨어져. 뭔지 알죠? 약간 다 같이 재밌게 하자고 다 챙겨주고 싶어 하는 마음인데 뭔가 인지받으려고 하는 사람들이 있는 게 조금 아쉬운 것 같아요. 저는 너무 좋게 분위기를 끌어올리고 또 끌어올려 주신 엔진분들이 많은데 막 그런 분들이 계시면 사실 좀
But netizens were very quick to start pointing fingers, connecting dots with baseless assumptions that immediately landed on Mina. Mina instantly started to face a numerous amount of backlash from other fans. What started as criticisms spiraled into people digging into her personal life through old posts, harassing her for the fact that she used to be a hostess in her past. For those of you who may not know, a hostess is a woman who works in overnight clubs, serving drinks and entertaining men. This is usually more common in Japan with host and hostess clubs coming in very different shapes and sizes. They're basically everywhere. But people didn't just stop there as they continued to expose information about her and basically dox her. She eventually apologized publicly, admitting that her constantly attending their events may have actually shifted her perspective on actual relationships. And alongside this, she announced the closure of her fan account, seeking sincere forgiveness from her fellow fans. But as you can imagine, the harassment continued. Regardless of whether you think Mina's behavior at the concert was annoying or inappropriate, there is a very big difference between saying, hey, how about we don't do this as fans, and collectively deciding that someone deserves to have their entire life investigated and destroyed online. And what baffles me more is when looking at the footage from that concert, there are multiple fans front row holding signs for the group members. They're barely dancing, they're barely enjoying the music, just hoping to be noticed and have an interaction with one of them. Yet Mina was the one to face hell for such a simple interaction. People love using the word accountability, but you don't get someone to claim accountability by publicly shaming and harassing them for such a mundane past. Going as far as psychologically destroying someone even after they do take accountability doesn't make you any better. And unfortunately, due to the cyberbullying and constant harassment, on August the 5th, Mina went live crying and sobbing in her Seoul apartment. This was when she took her own life, with police confirmation after. And a lot of people also need to be extremely careful about blaming Nikki for what happened. It's completely fair to discuss parasocial relationships, idol fan boundaries, or whether companies should do more in order to prevent these toxic fan behaviors. Turning an idol's general statement about concert etiquette into a, oh my gosh, he caused this is all of his fault, without evidence is another level of a reach. The people who chose to harass Mina are responsible for their own actions, and those who quickly turn to blame Nikki seem to be the ones most guilty as they refuse to accept their crimes. At the same time, this entire situation exposes something seriously wrong with modern fandom culture, which has always been an issue, of course it has, especially in the K-pop industry. But this is such an ugly level to reach. Some fans become so emotionally invested in idols that another person's interaction feels like a personal attack to them. Suddenly, a concert isn't just a concert. It's a place to compete over who gets the most attention and who deserves to be publicly shamed after. And when thousands of people participate in this mentality, the consequences can become very devastating, as we've just seen. Mina's death shouldn't become another weapon in a fan war, and it shouldn't be used to attack Nikki out of all people, which unfortunately is what I've seen happening already. People are too busy pointing fingers rather than acknowledging how terribly this reflects on K-pop fans as a whole. Because how does it get to this point? The world is on fire and we have the worst people leading us through it. Why are you taking out every ounce of anger and frustration on complete strangers over K-pop idols of all things? At what point did being a fan become an excuse to stop treating other people like human beings? Because no idol is worth ruining someone else's life over. If you feel entitled to them because you've spent your entire life savings on them, then that is your own struggle. It's no one else's responsibility. An idol owes you nothing and neither do other fans. You are merely a customer to large corporations who churn out music and fan service. And through all of this, no fan should ever become a target simply because the internet decided that they were the villain of that week. The unfortunate thing is that this isn't the first time that something like this has happened, nor will it be the last time. There have been many deaths in the K-pop industry due to the same thing, cyberbullying, harassment. And the thing is, people suddenly care for like a month or so before they return back to their normal habits, where they basically see anyone who isn't them as less human. And it is pessimistic to think about that, but at the same time, that is the reality. If you've been in the industry, then you've seen it happen countless times. It's a never-ending cycle that is only really propelled with how recently in society so many people have just become desensitized to almost everything. But despite all of that, hopefully, always hoping that one day it will change, especially when it comes to new generations being brought up in a world that basically just doesn't care about anything. There's always hope for change and there's always hope for better.